Would you like to know why I think that now is the perfect time to get started with LinkedIn video content? Why LinkedIn? Why video content? And why now? If you're intrigued, you're going to love this week's podcast episode. And I also provide lots of tips and advice for how to get started with your LinkedIn video content.
Welcome to the Content 10X Podcast, the show where content creators learn how to harness the power of content repurposing. And now, your host, Amy Woods.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Content 10X Podcast. I'm your host, Amy Woods, and this week's episode is all about why now is the perfect time to embrace video on LinkedIn. So I'm going to talk about why I think now is great timing and also give you some great tips for getting started on LinkedIn with video content. So I think there's never been a better time to take the leap and embrace video on LinkedIn. We're in this perfect storm of businesses pivoting, people adapting to a new normal, and barriers to entry falling down in so many different places. And when it comes to content marketing, one positive side effect of the pandemic that I really hope to see is the removal of many of the barriers and fears people face when it comes to sharing videos on social media, and particularly LinkedIn. And I believe now is just the perfect time to start embracing video on LinkedIn and potentially see just even greater results from this wonderful platform. Now, firstly, why LinkedIn? So the proof that video on LinkedIn is worth investing in. I am such an advocate of video content overall. It performs really well. It's highly engaging and it has so much potential for creativity and repurposing. And of all the social media platforms there is, LinkedIn is one where video gets the most attention organically. So video is really favored on all of the social media platforms for sure. But with LinkedIn, you get really good organic reach. And by that, I mean you get to reach lots of people with your video content without spending a penny. And also LinkedIn, it's criminally underutilized. Okay, so I was doing some research and it turns out that 9 billion content impressions on LinkedIn happen every single week, but only 3 million users share content every week. So that's 1% of the platform user base getting all of the views. Now, when LinkedIn first trialed video in 2017, they found video content was shared 20 times more than any other content. And that trend has continued over time. So when you start to join the dots, hopefully you can see what I mean about the potential there is to grow your influence really fast on LinkedIn via consistent video content. But despite how effective it is, I know so many people are unsure about getting started. And it's so understandable because putting yourself out there and getting on camera for the first time is really, really daunting, and especially in a professional space such as LinkedIn. I know that I've been there. I do create video content now, but I still find it daunting sometimes. But I know what the benefits are, and I know that it's such a great content medium, and I get better over time. So you need to just get started if you want to really rock with video content. But I also know there's always so many reasons not to do something. And especially when it's outside of your comfort zone, it's so much easier to procrastinate when it's just really outside of your comfort zone. But LinkedIn videos are so effective. They're effective for raising your profile on the platform. They really will supercharge your engagement, your personal brand, and they'll help you rise up above your competitors and your peers as well. Now, I talked about timing. So why do I think it's the perfect time to get started on LinkedIn? So a key reason is that production value expectations have really lowered. So during lockdown and this period of social distancing, many of our favorite TV shows are currently being filmed in garages and in kitchens. Every brand and their grandmother has gone live on Instagram, and the polished veneer of video content really has fallen away. So some examples: James Corden filming his Late Late Show from his garage. Ellen is broadcasting her show from her living room. We've seen Jamie Oliver helping us cook healthy recipes using his own kitchen and an iPhone. Jimmy Fallon's been interrupted by his daughter daughter in the middle of his show at home. And Trevor Noah, he's kept going with nothing more than an iPhone. So we've seen so many examples of these big celebrities and also brands, businesses, broadcasters who are embracing this more raw kind of native content. Another example is the news shows that would have had experts come in to the studio, hair and makeup, and then be interviewed in that studio setting. And we're now seeing all of these experts just dialing in via Zoom or whatever software they use. So if we're seeing all of these professionals and all these TV shows getting away without a single member of their production team on set and without the flashy studios, then isn't this just the perfect time for you to get started as well? If TV stars can film from their iPhones in some cases and get interrupted by their kids and be in their living room, then it starts to level off the playing field for what you can do as well. So this imperfect approach to video has suddenly become totally accepted amongst audiences. So don't stop yourself from starting because you think that you need that world-class camera or the studio or the videographer and the video team, because that's just not the case. And right now, starting with what you've got will make you look the same as the biggest brands, businesses, celebrities and production houses right now. So that's why I think now is a great time. And it's also a special time for confidence and empathy as well. So for the first time ever, near enough every single person in the world is experiencing the same thing at the same time when it comes to the coronavirus. Now, I don't mean we're all experiencing it in exactly the same way. Of course, not every country is different. Every individual person experience is different with how they've been impacted. But the key thing is we are all impacted in some way by the pandemic. Now, it was reported in the news at one point over, I think it was a couple of months ago in late March, early April, that at that point in time, half of the entire global population was in lockdown, which just absolutely blew my mind. And it makes the world feel a lot smaller when we know that there's this shared experience going on. So when we all know everyone is going through something, it makes empathy and understanding a whole lot easier. And it really is just creating this do what we can, supportive mindset due to this shared experience. And it's a given we're all trying new things and doing our best to adapt right now. So if you post a video that doesn't look like you hired a videographer or had a studio, you are going to be okay as well. So not only are audiences used to this lower production value, but they're also a lot more empathetic and understanding. Hey, just a little break from this podcast episode to ask you a question. Would you like one single place that you can go to that provides you with everything you need to be able to implement the best practices in content repurposing for your video content, your podcast episodes, and your social media content today? To help you get more value from the content that you create, get more time back, and help you reach more people than you ever thought possible. If so, then you are going to love the Content 10x Toolkit. The toolkit is full of video tutorials, templates, checklists, swipe files, step-by-step guides and more that shows you how to repurpose your content in the best ways possible today. No more Googling, no more figuring it out yourself. We provide you with everything that you need to become a content repurposing pro. If this sounds like something that would interest you, then go check out the Content 10x Toolkit at content10x.com/toolkit. Okay, and back to this week's episode. So I want to give you some tips in terms of if this has convinced you that it could be a great time to embrace video content, then other barriers I know, they're knowing what to say and also knowing how to do it. So there's always something to say, but sometimes I know the worries about production quality and confidence can paralyze us. And plus, when you're starting out, it can be really hard to know what to begin with. When the possibilities almost feel endless, it can be pretty hard to get to the starting line as well. Now, everyone I've spoken to who posts videos on LinkedIn agrees that once you get started, the ideas do start flowing. So I really recommend if you are going to commit to start doing, say, a weekly video on LinkedIn, then write out what your first 12 videos will be and have the confidence that you know exactly what you're going to say for the first 12 videos. And how do you get those ideas? Now, ask your audience what they would like to hear. Ask your customers, ask your clients what they would like to hear you talk about. Look at your FAQs, all the questions that come in all the time, because you can probably film a video just answering all of the questions and not even just answering one question. Some questions can be so complex, maybe that's 3 or 4 videos that you could record. Also, other ideas, other prompts, so problem solver videos, explain a common problem in your industry and how you overcame it or how you help others overcome that problem. The what not to do approach, so teach people to avoid mistakes, maybe share mistakes you've made in the past and what you learned from them, or also interviews as well. So interviews work really well on LinkedIn. So interview specialists from relevant topics in your industry and go down that route. That can be a great route, especially for getting started with video content. But as I said, I then know that another barrier can be the knowing how to do it. Now, everything I've said about having low production value, I do not mean that it's okay to just go and create, really terrible looking videos. But the good news is there's some really simple things that you can do on a low budget, and some of the tips on a no budget, just ways to think about creating your video that are really going to help you create great looking videos. So the first thing to think about is equipment. You do not need a full studio setup, but you do need some essentials. Like, for example, I would consider a mic to be essential because sound quality really is so important. I'd also consider a lighting to be really important as well, and investing in potentially something like a ring light, or on Amazon you can get lighting kits, but thinking about that, and also a tripod as well. So if there's one key thing you want, it's a steady camera as well. And if you're recording on your own, there's no one else with you, you don't want to be holding a selfie stick or holding the camera yourself. You want to be free from that. So it is a good idea to think about getting a tripod. I'm just going to stop right here and let you know that in terms of the detail of all of this, is there any mics that we recommend, any lights that we recommend, etc.? Yes, there are. We've got a guide called How to Get Set Up and Started with Video on LinkedIn. And this guide takes you through everything you need to know about filming videos on LinkedIn and getting started from the technical side. So some clever tips and tricks to make your content even more impactful. And it gives specifics on the types of mics we recommend and the lights and the tripods and things like that. So that's at content10x.com/video guide. But as I was saying, so the kind of equipment you can get, it doesn't need to break the bank at all, but we really do recommend those basics. So at least thinking about the microphone and the lighting and the tripod. You also need to consider your environment. So you need to think about somewhere light and quiet that you can film regularly, and also really think about your background as well. So I'm not even joking when I say that I saw somebody doing, I think it was a webinar the other day, and they had a clothes maiden behind them with all of their wet clothes, even their underwear just drying right behind them on camera. And it really does surprise me when people don't just stop for a second and look to see what the background is like, and if there's just a few things you could move out of the way to make it less distracting and maybe like a little bit more appropriate as well. So think about your environment. We cover some tips on this in the guide I just mentioned, but things like, books. Will you have a bookcase that shows that you're well read and intelligent? Will you have pictures and photographs of your family to show that you're a family person? Or maybe you're really into art and you want to show your artwork behind you. But whatever it is, you need to stop and think about your environment. And another key thing is your presence, so your on-screen presence. So shoulders back, a genuine smile on your face. Imagine that you're speaking to someone directly behind the camera. And a tip that I've heard many times actually is to have a photograph on or behind your camera, so that when you are talking to the camera, you're actually talking to a person, to remind yourself that you are just speaking to people and try and help you to sound a bit more conversational in your tone. But feeling comfortable on camera, it really does take time. It takes time and practice. You need to work out how to get your body language right. And when you do, when it all clicks, then it'll look like you've been doing it all of your life. But it's definitely something that the more you do it, the better you get. So you have to jump in. And also, don't forget to speak slowly and clearly as well. So I hope that I've really convinced you that now is the time to get started with video content, that LinkedIn is a fantastic platform to embrace for video content, and just some tips and tricks that means that you don't have to invest loads and it's a level playing field right now, but you don't need to look like you have an amateur setup either. And as I said, we have our wonderful guide, How to Get Set Up and Started with Video on LinkedIn at content10x.com/video guide. And it takes you through everything you need to know about filming videos for LinkedIn. And we really just help you get that great look and feel and help you with the equipment and your on-screen presence as well. So all that's left to say is thank you so much for listening to this week's podcast episode. I really do appreciate it. If you like the show, then I'd love it if you could leave a review on your favorite podcast listening app. It really does make a difference for helping other people to find the show. Also, if you haven't got a copy yet, then please do get a copy of my book. It's called Content 10X, More Content, Less Time, Maximum Results. And it is literally the ultimate guide to repurposing every type of content. And it's at content10x.com/book. If you need any help with your content repurposing as well, then don't hesitate to get in touch with us about our comprehensive end-to-end repurposing service for podcasters and video creators. So again, just at content10x.com. And don't hesitate to follow me on social media as well. I'm on all the social media platforms at Content10x. Most of the time you'll find me hanging out on Instagram and LinkedIn, but I am on all of them, so please do come and say hi. So all that's left to say is thank you so much for listening to this week's podcast episode, and I will catch you in the next one.